Here, you can exercise your rights to freedom every day without leaving your home. We don't just say, we do. It's the Stain City way.
Good afternoon and welcome to Real Talk. Since 1988, the 1st of December is dedicated to raising awareness of the AIDS pandemic caused by the spread of HIV infection. Living with HIV is no longer a death sentence, and people who are living with the virus can have a positive, healthy and a meaningful life. My first guest was diagnosed with HIV in 1997. He lives openly with his HIV status and is dedicated to making a difference by breaking the silence and changing the mindset of those he comes into contact with. Alan Brand is the sole proprietor of Positively Alive and the author of Positively Alive, Living with HIV and AIDS, A Path to Inner Healing, as well as a Positively Alive recipe book, which he just sold out yesterday, I tell you. How impressive. Welcome, Alan.
Thank you very much, Anele. Thanks for having me.
Actually, like when I was reading about you, I was like, he's got a cookbook. I hope he brings it. And then you tell me that yesterday you sold the last copy.
Well, the copies are still available, but unfortunately, the ones that I had in my hands, the last one was sold yesterday, yes, and indeed.
Let's admit it's a very good problem to have.
Absolutely. We're not complaining.
We're not complaining, because imagine they just scattered around your house and there's a doorstopper, and there's a cup holder, so you're good, you're good.
Yeah.
So take me back to 20 years ago when you found out that you were infected with the HIV virus.
Yeah, you know, I think that 20 years ago, it was such a different ballgame to where we are today. And I remember I was not diagnosed because I actually went for an HIV test. I actually went for an executive medical checkup. What that is, nobody knows. But anyway, I thought it sounded smart.
Okay.
And the doctor did that. And at the time, the doctor said to me, you know, is it okay if we do a full blood count? And that's when I agreed, and my blood was taken. 3 days later, when the doctor then phoned me and said I must come and see her, I was then told that I'm positive. And I remember people often ask me, how did you feel? And I think that's what you're also asking, what was my response? And I must be very honest, my response was one of total blankness. It was too much of a shock to actually really respond in any way.
Were you aware of the virus? Was it something that was there, but it always happens to somebody else?
That's exactly it. I mean, it's always going to happen to somebody else, not going to happen to you, isn't it? And that's just the moral of the story. But when it does happen to you, of course, then, you know, you've got to start asking yourself, well, what do I know? And I remember back in 1997, what I knew about HIV back then was really quite useless, because I knew that I should have worn a condom. I knew that I should have been faithful, and all of those things, but they didn't really help now.
So how long does it take you from after finding out what your status is to... Because, you know, now you're living positively and you're writing the books and you're an example and you go everywhere, but it doesn't happen immediately. You don't get the news and then you're like, you know what, I'm going to be an example.
No, you know, I totally, I think that reflecting back now and seeing how people that are now recently diagnosed and how they respond and how I respond, it's so different. I went into silence, and I call that my dark period of 3 years, where I told nobody because I was too ashamed. And it was then in 1999 that I was diagnosed with AIDS and given 18 months to live that I realized, no, wait a minute, this is just ridiculous. This is a silly way to respond to any disease. And I made the decision to start breaking the silence. And the irony of it all is that the moment I started doing that, without ARVs, I got better. So the attitude, and I remember my doctor saying, but what are you doing? What has changed? You're not even taking ARVs yet.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't know, maybe I'm eating carrots, or I really didn't know. And the doctor said, I think your attitude has changed. So it just shows you the power of that. But yes, I am on ARVs now, and been undetectable since I started taking ARVs. And the wonderful thing now, of course, that undetectable means untransmittable.
Yes.
And so there's so much going on now that there's
You see, you're saying so many things that I think people need to hear, right? So explain to us what is undetectable, and then further on, what is untransferable.
You know, I think that I don't really like the word undetectable, because when we say undetectable, it almost gives us impression that, oh, I'm cured.
Yeah.
Whereas if you say the word suppressed, we understand suppressed means it's still there, but it's under control.
Okay.
And it's got a different meaning. So I prefer to use the word suppressed. So my viral load is suppressed. The virus is totally 100% suppressed in my body because I'm on treatment. So it's not growing
because viruses grow.
It's not multiplying.
Yeah.
It's under control. It is totally suppressed to the extent that the volume of HIV in my blood doesn't even show up if I go for a viral load. That's what undetectable means, because it's undetectable to the tests.
Therefore, you don't have, and now I'm using layman's term, therefore you don't have enough virus in the body for you to transmit.
Well, we always were wondering about that. You know, would that be the case? And we've been waiting a long time for the research to come in, and this year the research has come in, and it's been a long time of research where they've been researching discordant relationships. Let me just explain that. That's basically where one is positive and one is negative, and the positive partner is on treatment with a suppressed viral load. And in fact, when I was reading the research document, they were talking about 58,000 sexual acts involved in that research, and not a single transmission of HIV. So if you think about it now, in 2017, we can now say to people, know your status, access treatment, and you are not the problem.
Yeah.
The problem of transmitting HIV and the problem of this virus continuing is not the people who know their status, it's the people who don't test.
Yeah.
And in fact, it also breaks the stigma, because I no longer have to be ashamed of my status. I now can say, I'm HIV positive and I'm suppressed. And I don't have to be stigmatized anymore around my status.
I think you might start a rap career. I'm suppressed and I'm not depressed. We should take this act on the road.
Yeah.
Okay, so because you're going to come back a little bit later with, and I'm going to pair you up with a doctor so we can run through myths and stigmas. Please, at all times, send your messages in. I want to go through numbers, because I know at a point your CD4 was below 200.
Yes.
Would you say that was your unhealthiest time living with the virus?
Yes, indeed, very, very much so. I mean, I remember people at that stage, even in the workplace, because I mean, most of my work that I do is workplace related. And at that stage, I wasn't open. I was beginning to open up, and there were rumors going around because of how ill I looked. I mean, I'd lost 25 kilograms. I didn't even have a voice. I wouldn't be able to be interviewed by you at all.
I don't have a voice today, so we would be fine.
No, mine was gone. And so yes, that was a bad time. But and it hasn't always, and I think that's a myth as well, because often we look at people living with HIV and we get this idea that it's just been plain sailing. Yes, it has been a road, and it has been a difficult road at times, but I've never given up. And I've had the most amazing support from my partner, from my children, and from my family. And I really am blessed by that, because those people have kept me going, and they've given me a reason to keep on fighting and saying, I'm not going to embrace this. I want to live.
So whilst, I mean, you're living positively and you're aware, I mean, of the research and the fact that, 2017 and beyond means that having the virus is not a death sentence. When it comes to your children, are you extra like dad on them? Like, you better be using protection, you better be checking your status, you better make sure that your sexual partners are tested. Like, are you extra?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think that, with my daughter, for instance, when she invited me for coffee, and I know she's watching this, so listen carefully, Nadine. When she invited me for coffee and told me that she's actually having sex.
Oh, Lord. Is that what people do these days?
That is like a nightmare story. And I just took a deep breath and thought to myself, this is an opportunity. She's actually told me, that means I can ask the right questions.
Okay.
And I immediately said to her, have you and the partner tested?
Yeah.
And she said, yes, we have. Dad, you're an example to us, and we know exactly what to do. So I didn't have to have that talk, because my life was already there teaching, and so that was easier.
All right, Alan, we'll be back later in the show. Geez, Nadine, really? You take your dad for coffee to tell him that you're doing the nookie? Wow! He'll be back later in the show to talk about healthy living. So send your voice messages if you have any questions. If you need any help or advice, we'll have a helpline. We'll have the helpline numbers on the screen throughout the show. After the break, a woman who suffered devastation when a boyfriend knowingly infected her with HIV. She'll share her story. Stay right where you are. Welcome back to Real Talk. Noma saw me Limako. Is it Limako or is it Dimako? Limako. There we go. Lomasomi Limako has been openly living with HIV for the past 9 years after she contracted HIV from someone that believed that HIV could be cured by sleeping with someone with a disability. She is wheelchair-bound because of polio and a single mother of twins. She has overcome her own stigma and despair and became an activist to highlight the plight of people living with disabilities and HIV/AIDS. We welcome Nomasomi to Real Talk. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
So now, here's the thing, is that you say you are dealing with double stigma, right? You're dealing with the fact that you are living with HIV and you're dealing with the fact that you're disabled.
Yes.
So which one did you think was more devastating for you?
I think it's both.
Ne?
Because having a disability is a stigma on its own. Yes. And then being HIV positive, it's another stigma on its own. As a black woman with a disability, it's a stigma on its own.
So this partner that infected you with HIV, did he tell you before you guys were sexually active that he believes that if you sleep with somebody who is disabled, it heals them?
No, he didn't, because I thought he loves me. And it was the time after my breakup with my daddy's father, my kid's father.
Yeah.
So I thought that, oh, this guy is different from my kid's father and blah, blah. I thought that he really into me.
Yeah.
After that, I found that he was cheating, and then after finding that he was cheating, I went for the test, and then I found out that I'm positive.
And so do you think he approached you and courted you to be his partner solely because of his belief?
Yes, I think so, because when I told him that, you know what, I'm HIV positive, and he said, no, I know, because I know I'm HIV positive too. I thought you are going to heal my HIV.
Okay, so that's his lack of involvement and not understanding, you know, how the disease works, how the infection works. But you also believe that you would not have HIV because you were disabled. You thought that it was for able-bodied, this disease.
Yes, I thought that because of my disability, I'm immune to HIV. And when I was thinking about HIV, I was thinking about the disease for able-bodied people, not for me as a person with a disability.
Is that something you heard somewhere? Is that something that you just kind of assumed for yourself?
No, I just assumed for myself because as a person with a disability, I believed that when there's no person with a disability who disclosed that he's having HIV, so which means we are immune to HIV. Okay. That was my belief and everything. That no, which means I am immune to HIV.
And then you test, and then you find out that you are, excuse me, that you are HIV positive.
Yes, I did.
What happens to you? What goes through your mind?
First thing, I thought I'm going to die. That was, I'm going to die, was the first thing on my mind. And I couldn't tell anybody. I stigmatized myself because, yes, I stigmatized myself because of the myth, you know. There are so many myths about people with disabilities that are around. Most of the time they are saying people with disabilities, they love sex, they love men and all those things. And then when I wanted to disclose to somebody about my status, I thought about, oh, they were going to say, yes, I deserve to be HIV
because
positive.
this is how you guys are.
Yes, you know. So I stood for 4 years on my corner without speaking to anybody up until my CD4 count was 7.
What?
Yes.
Wait a minute. And once again, like I was saying to Ellen, let's talk numbers. Isn't having a CD4 count below 200 like dire, like it's not good?
It was like that.
And you were at 7?
Yes. I had all these diseases, the infections and the TB, all this disease. And I was the luckiest one that when I started the treatment could lift me up until now. I'm being lifted. And I want to rectify the years. I've been living with HIV for 15 years, for 14 years. Next year I'm going to be 15 years, not 9 years.
So you, you say that you first opened up to a support group before you opened up to your mother. Would you say being in the support group gave you the strength and the knowledge and the comfort to then let your own family know?
Yes, you know, at the support group, that's where I met some people who were like supportive of me, who didn't judge me and all those things. But firstly, I went to the support group. I thought that support group was not for me. That's why I stood at the corner, because I stigmatized myself. When I saw that support group, I saw the young people and all these people. There's no one with a disability. And I thought they couldn't understand me. No one could understand the way I feel at the moment. And then up until I met these other people from the other support group, then they came to me and then they were supportive all the way. They make me to understand that I'm not alone in this battle.
And now, what is your relationship with your health status?
I'm healthy. I even forget that I'm HIV positive. I'm living beyond my HIV. And also, even my kids, they know that I'm HIV positive. And they're so supportive, my family, all of them, even my pastors, my church, is so supportive of me. And
you healthy and your CD4 count is... We're good. We're not sitting at 7 any longer.
No, I'm not. I couldn't sit at 7 because I have to move on. Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. Yes. And continue the good work that you do by, speaking about this.
Thank you a lot.
Thank you so much. After the break, 2 women who learned about their status while hospitalized for TB and who are now mothers to healthy children, they'll share their stories. If you have any questions on HIV and pregnancy, make sure you send us a voice note right now. We'll be right back. When medical staff were asking Hani Stevenson to do an HIV test in 2011, she refused. Later that year, she found out that she was 6 months pregnant and was no longer able to avoid HIV testing. When the results came back, she was overcome with feelings of sadness and anger. Today, Hani is the mother of an HIV-negative daughter, and she works with teenagers who are infected and affected by HIV through her program, Living with Hope. Bernice Lutule found out she was HIV positive when she had to do an HIV test for an operation to remove part of her lung as a result of TB. At first, she kept her status a secret, became active and stayed positive at all times. She wanted to have children and research whether it would be possible to have a healthy baby. She gave birth to a beautiful baby boy in 2003. We welcome Hani and Bernice to Real Talk. Now, Hani is very nervous. Do you want to take a deep breath? There we are. Bernice, you also say you're nervous, but you don't look it like...
I think I'm more calm now.
You look like you and I could swap and life would be really okay. So you refuse to take an HIV test. What? Did you know at the back of your mind that something's up?
Not necessarily, Anele, but why?
Yeah.
It was more of why. I mean, I'm in a committed relationship, and for as long as I've known, I've been in a committed relationship, and I'm with this partner of mine. And where will I be getting this HIV from? You know, the myth behind HIV being contracted by sleeping around, and that was just it.
I'm so glad you said that, because immediately when we think AIDS and when we think HIV, we think a person who just sleeps with people all the time, whereas you could... and my mom used to say this to me, Anele, it will come into your house.
Exactly.
So don't just, be protected by the fact that you are this high-moraled person, and nothing will happen to you.
And all of it.
So you fall pregnant, and then the doctors say you must take an HIV test. Do you say yes?
No, I didn't, because the reason why I was in hospital was for my lung failure. And now suddenly comes this pregnancy. And now everything started flocking in. Now the HIV. Okay, now what's next? And I remember used to making jokes like, okay, maybe next time when I go for my checkups, I'll be diagnosed with cancer or sugar diabetes. So For me, it was a joke at first, up until I saw myself going, lost weight, yes.
Okay.
And now reality checked in.
Bernice, you found out because you were in hospital to have an operation on your lung as a result of TB.
Yes, that's true.
Now, when you are sick with TB, does nothing say to you that there's a bigger issue here? And how can your doctors diagnose you and know that you've got TB, but they don't know that you've got HIV?
Anele, you know, when I had TB, I've been suspecting that I could be HIV positive. And, you know, the TB raised, you know, that suspicion more higher. And when I had to test, I wasn't ready, but I was forced because of the operation. And I only tested for HIV. And, you know, after testing, I didn't even go and ask for my results. And no one even came back to me and say, here are your results. And I thought, oh, looks like, you know, I'm in the clear. But I was still, you know, a bit worried until I went to a TB hospital. That's when the doctor read my results. Those results that I took at the other hospital where I had an operation, they had to transfer, you know, all my information. And he had to read that out loud in a word, like, do you know your HIV status? I said, no. Because, you know, I didn't know. Because I tested, I didn't even check. I said, no. And then he said, what? How come you don't know? It's right here in your file. You are positive. And we're like, 8 in a row.
10 points for sensitivity, doctor. Thank you.
He just didn't care. He just looked at sick people with TB because it was a TB hospital. And, you know, I looked at him and I couldn't hear anything he said after that. Like, everything was blank. But, you know, I think I was relieved, like, confirming that.
Yeah, you're not in, it's a bit of a relief because once you know something, you know how to tackle it.
Exactly. And that's how I felt too. You know, as much as I was in denial about it, as much as I refused accepting it, I knew at the back of my mind that it can be possible, you know?
Can I just ask, are you guys still with the men you were with when you found out about your virus?
No.
No.
Because are they the ones that gave it to you? Are you sure? Do you know? Did you tell them? Did you like...
We teach people on not pointing fingers.
Okay.
Because you cannot really tell where you contracted HIV from. However, one has been better ever since I've walked out of the relationship.
Okay.
So I think, is that safe to say?
Yes, but you know, with me, it's a different case because the man that I know has infected me. When I found out that he died, committed suicide, that's when I thought, oh my God, I could be positive.
Oh.
And he's already dead. All I need to do is move on, forgive myself and forgive him wherever he is. And unfortunately, we were not even in a relationship. It's something that happened like once off and, you know, so I didn't even want to like focus on him. I just wanted to focus on getting better. I just wanted to focus on living beyond this HIV, you know.
Okay, so there's a WhatsApp voice note. Somebody asking you a question, both of you can answer it.
Hi, Anele. What I want to know is that how do you tell a person that you're HIV positive, like on your first date? How do you tell someone that you're HIV, and how do you know if they're going to accept you or not?
Well, you don't know if they're going to accept you or not. That much I can tell you.
Yeah, that's true. But I could answer by saying it's worth a shot. I mean, if you also would have to look at the person and the intentions. Because you can't just go around telling people that I'm HIV positive and the next thing you leave, you are being left disappointed. But if you can tell with the intentions of a person, then that's when you can take it to a next step. But I normally advise on the 5 minutes of your time with that person. When you see that I like this person and this person tends to like me back, why not?
Yeah, it has been hectic for me because you first think, I need to see where's this thing going. And I had a lot of disappointments and, you know, rejections, but now I've moved on from that. What I do now is, the first thing that I do is disclose my status. Whether I like you or not, whether your intentions are pure, clear, or whatever, I just talk about my status because of the experiences that I had of rejections, of people feeling, you know, disappointed, and because it hurt me, the process, and I just didn't know. I couldn't be sure, but now I have decided that what I'm going to do is I'm going to disclose the first thing. And it helps, it works for me. And what works for me is going out public, talking about my status. Like, when I'm there, people know who is Bernice, you know? And then they don't say, yo, ole, wakula, you know? People will know who is Bernice. Bernice is positive. So you don't have to, people don't have to like gossip about you.
Yeah, it's not like something that they can hold against you,
so
you know?
That's one of the things that is helping me, that people know who is Bernice. And if you come to approach me, you know who I am.
All right.
And it helps with breaking the stigma as well.
Yeah.
You know, you don't get to stigmatize yourself because you don't really worry about what people think about you. So if someone comes to you and approaches you and you start off by saying, hey, kinahani, and then I'm living with one lung and I'm living with HIV, I've got 2 kids, it gives you a chance to go. And if you want to stay and listen to Honey's story, then
by all means.
Yes.
Yeah, guys, your story, fascinating, enlightening, and refreshing. Thank you for your time, Honey. Thank you for your time, Bernice. These two are definitely an inspiration to people with breaking the negative stigma when it comes to people living with HIV. If you have any more questions about pregnancy and HIV, send us a voice note, because after the break, Dr. Viola Baba will be here. She joins us to talk about HIV and pregnancy. I mean, these ladies are here. They have children who are HIV negative. We want to find out how that happens. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Real Talk. It is World AIDS Day, and although there is more information on HIV and AIDS available than before, people still have many questions, especially when it comes to HIV and pregnancy. To help answer some of the questions that you may have today that you're sending to our WhatsApp line, we have Dr. Viola Baba, a gynecologist and obstetrician, joining us in studio. Welcome.
Hi.
So off the bat, you know, we had Honey and Bernice here, who were both HIV positive, and they gave birth to HIV negative children.
Yeah.
How does that work out?
Okay, so Honey, if I remember correctly, she was started on treatment, and she found out she was HIV positive at 6 months, and which in a lot of women in South Africa, that's when they go and attend an antenatal clinic, and they get an HIV test, and they get started on...
Is it compulsory to have an HIV test when you're pregnant?
In the state institutions, yes.
Okay.
Okay. So everyone gets counseling, and they get tested, and given the results, and then they get started on treatment on the same day. However, women in private practice, it's not so straightforward. Women in private practice still have leeway to refuse an HIV test, which is where some of the problems are. But ideally, all women who are pregnant, as soon as they find out they're pregnant, they should be having an HIV test, so that when you are HIV positive, you get started on treatment immediately. You guys spoke about CD4 counts and viral loads earlier on. And the reason we want to start the treatment earlier is to drop that viral load, which is the amount of virus multiplying in your body. Because that is closely related to your risk of transmitting the virus to the baby. So the higher your viral load is, the more chances are you are going to pass the virus on to the baby.
So there could be a situation where I'm pregnant, and the child doesn't have the virus, but then during the course of the pregnancy, they get it?
So as long as the baby is inside of you, there's always a risk, right? Because they are inside of your body.
They have all my fluids.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then obviously there's an added risk, or there's another risk at delivery, and then there's risk after you've delivered, which is related to how you feed your baby and the treatment which we call prophylaxis that the baby needs to get. So there's different parts along pregnancy where the baby can pick up the virus.
When you say dependent on how you deliver, and I was thinking about this today, and I was like, I've never heard the answer to this. When I am HIV positive and I want to you know, minimize the risk of me transmitting it to my child. Is it safer to have a natural birth or a C-section?
Okay, so in the past, we were saying that women should have a C-section. But now we know with research that that's not necessarily true, all right? So if a woman books early and is started on antiretroviral therapy on time, and we drop that viral load to become suppressed or undetectable, that woman can have a normal delivery. Okay. In the past, we also used to give drips and give what we call AZT in the drip to try and reduce the risk further when a woman is going to deliver. We found that, researchers found that if a woman is treated in the antenatal course, so whilst they're pregnant, and you drop that viral load, you don't need those extra bits. You don't need to have a Caesar, and you don't need that extra drip and all those things. But for me, the obstetrician, when my patient is HIV positive, there are obviously certain precautions that I need to take so that I don't injure the baby, but also I don't injure the mother, so that there's less risk of contaminating, I'm using it loosely, of contaminating the baby.
So what I'm picking up from what you're saying is that I can be on ARVs whilst being pregnant?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Of course you can.
Okay.
So there have been myths before that some of the ARVs that we provide or hand out or write up cause abnormalities in babies. And there have been fears from other mothers. Even when you read the package insert, there's a small warning about teratogenicity, which is abnormalities in the baby caused by the drug. Research has shown us that the ARVs that we use as first line do not cause abnormalities in the baby and are not harmful to the baby.
So besides me being HIV positive and then giving birth to an HIV positive child, right? Is there any other way that they could get it now? You said during feeding.
Okay, so like I said before, it's during the pregnancy, okay, and then at delivery,
yes,
and then afterwards, right? So afterwards, it's the feeding. So if mom is on treatment and their viral load is suppressed, those mothers can breastfeed. But if they do breastfeed, it needs to be breastfeeding only. So what that means is I don't mix it with formula. I don't mix it with porridge and other things. It needs to be breast milk completely. But also, I myself as the mother who is breastfeeding, I need to make sure I'm taking my treatment all the time to keep that viral load suppressed.
Okay, we've got a few voice notes coming in for you.
Okay.
People are like, we trust her. We know what she's talking about. Okay. Let's hear it.
Hi, Anele. My name is Pinkine. I just wanted to ask a question. Like, for instance, when a couple is in a process, making a child, and the male is HIV positive and the lady is also HIV positive, what are the possibilities of the child not being infected, or does it mean that they're not supposed to make a child at all? Thank you.
Okay, so to answer it plainly, being HIV positive does not mean you cannot have children. Okay, so you can have both parents being HIV positive and they can have an HIV negative baby. Okay, but both parents need to be healthy. Okay, one of the things that HIV has done is to force people to plan their pregnancies. Because if you're virally suppressed before you fall pregnant, the chance of you passing on the virus to your baby is even far less, okay? So, and even in situations where one parent is HIV positive and the other is HIV negative, you can still have an HIV negative baby. However, we need to be on treatment. So one, we need to test and know our status, and then we need to be on treatment and stay on treatment. And then after the baby is delivered, make sure the baby gets the nevirapine syrup. We use nevirapine syrup mostly in South Africa. There are variations, but the big one is nevirapine syrup for the baby. And then choose a feeding method that is suitable for you. So what I mean by that is there's no point me forcing issues to breastfeed if I know I have to be back at work in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Because if I haven't disclosed my status to the person who's going to be looking after my baby, and they come and they give the baby formula, and I've been breastfeeding,
yeah,
I'm increasing the risk of transmission to that baby.
What's the science behind that? Can you explain it to us, or do I need to go to medical school?
Not really, but it's about the intestines of the baby and the fact that there is still some virus in the mom's breast. And when you give the bottle, there is a reaction. When you give formula, rather, when you give formula to the baby, there is a reaction in the gut of the baby, or in the intestine or the stomach of the baby. And then that opens gaps in the baby's stomach where the virus can pass through. The little bit of virus that comes from the mother's breast milk. So that's the short version.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you. Listen, after the break, Alan Brand will join us again with Dr. Viola Baba to discuss healthy habits whilst living with HIV. Feel free to ask questions. Send us your voice notes and tweets, but also come back. And welcome back to Real Talk with Anele. Only on SABC 3, the stage is yours. We've lost so many people because of denial and a lack of knowledge when it comes to HIV/AIDS. A healthy lifestyle is vital when you are living with HIV. Actually, it's vital, Jay, when you are just being Jay. Let's not just like allocate it to living with HIV. Alan Brand, author of Positively Alive recipe book, joins us again with Dr. Viola Baba to talk about the do's and the don'ts. First things first, you find out you've got HIV, right? You're HIV positive and you must make lifestyle choices. What, you know, it's like you're not allowed to drink, you're not allowed to smoke, you're not allowed to go out at night. You see your face, there we go. Talk to us, tell us the truth.
No. Okay, so being HIV positive doesn't mean you stop living. Okay, so yes, you need to live a healthy life, exercise, eat right, get enough sleep. But you don't just stop doing the things that you were doing before. Allow me to say that I was talking to Alan earlier on, and he was saying that he was talking to some boys or men, and they were worried that when they found out they were HIV positive, they wouldn't be able to drink, have sex, or go out. And that's not true. You don't stop doing the things that you were doing before because you're HIV positive. Yes, you need to change a few things. If you're a heavy smoker, you're definitely going to have to cut down. You need to cut down on your drinking if you do drink. Stop if you really have to. And if you are really unwell, which is most people in our country find out they're HIV positive when
very late in
very late, and when they're unwell. So at that point, obviously, you need to recuperate, get your body up, take your medication, take your medication, take your medication. I'm doing it deliberately. Take your medication, so that you do get better up, get up and up and about again.
Yeah. Alan, earlier we spoke about your recipe book, and now this is about healthy lifestyle and, you know, the choices that you make. Why are your books specific to the HIV virus?
You know, I think that I got asked so many times because of the fact that I was living well and healthy and, as I say, positively alive, not HIV positive. People will ask me, what do you eat? And I kept on saying, I don't have a special recipe. I just eat what's in the fridge. But people continuously ask me that question, and I got an understanding that people really, really wanted to know, is there some golden bullet? Is there something that I need to eat and something that I mustn't eat, and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And the recipe book was really designed to bring about the just general knowledge about healthy eating. And it's not about somebody being HIV, it's about immune health. So it's about eating for your immune system. It's about eating for immune health. And everybody benefits from that. Understanding why we need to eat out of the 5 different food groups, why we need to eat balanced meals and things like that. And, you know, yes, as the doctor was saying, this morning speaking at in Rustenburg, I asked a very big audience of men, what is it that is frightening you that makes you not want to test? And of course they immediately said fear. And I said, what do you fear? And I'm trying to get to the bottom of what is it that you are so afraid of, because it has not changed anything in my life.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to if you choose to not let it. And of course, they immediately went into, well, I can't have sex. And so I thought, no, you can have sex. I still have sex. I'm 58 and I still have sex. You know.
Good God.
Good God, yes. And you can drink, but again, understanding what that means. Because if you're taking antiretrovirals, all drugs, doesn't matter whether it's antiretrovirals or any chronic medication,
You have to be
it's
eating.
got to be excreted.
Yeah.
First of all, yes, you've got to eat. You've got to
Yeah.
have something in your stomach when you take it. But also, your body's got to excrete that drug after it's been used. So it either is going to go through your kidneys or your liver. And alcohol goes through your liver. So if you're going to take ARVs that are also going through your liver, you might be very healthy with HIV, but you might be ending up with liver failure. So it doesn't mean don't have a glass of wine, don't have a beer, but don't have a six-pack.
Yeah, don't exhaust your organs because they're also working somewhere else.
Yeah.
All right,
That's
so we've
right.
got a voice note question. Both of you can answer this one.
Hi, Anele. I'm 7 months pregnant and I got tested positive. I then told my partner and he got tested and it was negative. So we've been dating for almost 3 years now. I just wanted to find out what might be the cause. Why am I positive and he's negative?
Okay, so I've seen a lot of that.
Okay.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of that, and the first advice that I would give is your partner needs to be tested again in about 3 to 6 months.
Because there could be a window period.
Yes.
Okay.
Our bodies are different, they're unique, so we all react differently to the virus, okay? And therefore, antibodies show up at different points in time in the test, because the test is antibody-based, okay? So that's the first thing. So it does happen, and there are people who are carrying the virus. When they do the test, they are negative, but they can still pass it on, okay? So, but like I say, this situation of my partner is negative, I'm pregnant, I tested it, I'm positive, I see a lot of it, and it does happen, but partner needs to be retested again.
But I heard that I've heard of this carrier thing where you're carrying it and you can pass it on. But when you test, it's not there. But I also heard that it can only happen with males. Females can never just be carriers. Am I talking stock fair nonsense?
As far as I know, yes, that funny situation is true.
But why do we not speak about it more? Is it because we don't want to
because there's still more, because there's still more research that is being done. Because HIV is it's one of those things that I say it's forced us to stop being lazy, because it evolves a lot, and it boggles even the biggest minds in medicine. And like I say, this scenario that has come through the voice note, I've seen it a lot of times.
Well, I can echo that as well. I've also had those the very same questions very, very often. And it is also about the ability of the immune system. Let's just take the men and the women issue. In many cases, the man is working, has got a job, and maybe even is getting a meal at work. Whereas the woman might be immune suppressed before she gets HIV. Obviously, if a virus enters both of them at the same time, there's going to be a difference in response to that virus getting a hold because of the strength of the immune system. Doesn't mean that women are weaker, doesn't mean that men are stronger. It just means it's logical, but sometimes it's very difficult to explain. So, because there's not a one answer for any one of these questions, and I think that's important to put forward. And it is very right what Doc says, is that you must remember the window period, and the partner that is testing negative at the moment must bear in mind that he might be in the window period, and therefore the test might just be showing him as not having seroconverted, and he might seroconvert going forward.
Another question before we go. If we're both HIV positive, I'm HIV positive, my boyfriend's HIV positive, that doesn't mean that now we can just throw condoms away, right? And be like, well, we're both here, let's go at it. Why?
One is what we've just talked about now, that our bodies respond differently to the virus. My genetic makeup is unique. So the way your partner is going to respond to the virus is going to be different. But also, when in women especially, you want to prevent other STIs. And I'm just leaving it simply there that, yeah.
Before we go... Just to add to that, just remember that also there are different strains of HIV. So you don't only have HIV-1, you've got HIV-1 and HIV-2. And if the partner is not being faithful and is picking up another virus, you might get reinfected with another strain of HIV.
Oh, God.
So, but just remember also what I was saying in the earlier insert, that if both partners are on treatment with suppressed viral loads, the risk of actually HIV transmission between the two of them would actually be eliminated. But the risk of those STDs, which doctor refers to, of course, which is going to influence your health, is very important to take into consideration as well.
Guys, thank you so much for coming through and not being doomsday sayers like, oh, you have HIV, oh, stop. This has been properly enlightening as well as refreshing. So thank you so much for your time. Doctor, thank you so much for your time. Alan, I'd like to thank my other guests today for sharing their stories and giving hope to people who might desperately need it. Remember, knowledge is power. Please educate yourself. Ask the questions you need answers for and read up as much as you can about HIV. Most importantly, know your status and then be safe. Till next time, take care.